Not one person in the world, not even Nick, no one went into that playoffs and said, LeBron's going to win this chip. Wallahi.
It doesn't matter about what people said. You're ignoring pure maths. And
That's what I'm saying.
You're ignoring the way the world works.
You might not bugging. You might actually don't. You might not bugging. I'm sorry, but sports don't work like that. Sports ain't mathematics.
Nah,
Sports
you're
is not
bugging.
When did sports become algebra? Sports ain't mathematics.
Yo, Dre,
Not,
can you pass
bro,
my
what are we
laptop,
doing here?
Brother, do you know what Moneyball is?
Bruv.
Watch the film Moneyball, then you'll know your argument is full
Bruv.
of shit. What's going on, world? Welcome to episode 84 of the Rhymes Like Dimes podcast. We boys Peter,
Yo.
Mohammed,
Yo.
myself Yemi. New year, new pod. We're back.
Happy New Year, man.
How we doing, boys?
Blessed and highly favored, man. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Happy New Year to you as well,
Happy
Mohammed.
New
You
Year.
good?
Happy New Year. God is good all the time.
All the time, God is good.
There
All
we
the
go.
time.
There we go.
God is good. Salute to Drake's as well in
Big
the
up
cup.
Drake's.
Salute to Drake.
Happy New Year. How you
Spend your
doing?
New Year's well? You spend your New Year's well? Making sure.
Is that what we call it now?
Is that what we call it now?
Oh, you did that? Mazza.
Swear down. That was all you. Bruh. So someone in the comments called you a monkey. Sort them out. Bare racism.
I don't want to blow up your job and all that to the people then, but Drake's was busy over New Year's. Let's put it that way. But yes, we are back. Happy New Year to everyone watching and listening. Shout out to the Spotify massive. Shout out to the SoundCloud massive. Amazon Music massive. Apple massive. And all the other massives out there. I forgot all the other massives, but salute to you lot.
Salute to you all.
Hope you guys enjoyed your Christmas. Had a nice break. Did you guys have a nice break?
Yeah, man. Yeah, well rested. Ready for the new year, man.
For sure. I mean, I know Mo don't celebrate Christmas, but did you have a good break, bro?
Nah, yeah, well, break-wise, yeah. Just chilled, man. Had time off before Christmas, then just worked like a madman during Christmas.
Did you do anything exciting?
What, for Christmas?
No, just generally over the break.
Nah, man, that was easy, bruv. Watch basketball on Christmas, New Year's, slept. I'm an old man.
They got to stop doing that Christmas Day basketball stuff.
Nah, it's the best day. That's when basketball starts. That's the official start of the season.
Oh, okay.
Like, that's not... It's looked at as, all right, cool.
Mm.
This is the official start.
Mad.
Big games, in it. It's always the 5 best teams, 10 best
Yeah.
teams. Get it cracking. Let's move. So, that's
Fair
all I've done, really. Didn't do nothing special.
But yeah,
Really, man.
now I'm going to ask me what I did.
How'd you do? What did you do, Yemi?
Thank you.
Of you.
I mean, New Year and clearly same
Not
old people,
new us.
same old guys. Yeah, it was good. It was good. Good time was with the family and all that good stuff. So yeah, I can't complain. Went to a party in a restaurant on New Year's Eve, which was interesting. Went to a restaurant for my boy Oscar's birthday. Shout out to Oscar.
Big up
Salute to
Oscar.
Oscar.
And we didn't know at the time, but a friend of a friend owned the restaurant and they invited us back for a party afterwards. So that was cool. Yeah. Sealed the new year quite nicely.
What was the restaurant?
It's a place called Yuva in Peckham. Food's not very good, but he told me to come back, the proprietor, which I will take him up on. Apparently the head chefs were not there that day.
Oh, swear.
Yeah, so I guess we'll put an asterisk on that.
The party, all right?
Yeah, it was cool. It was all right. You want to ask anything else?
Got better questions, innit?
Minute.
I was leading somewhere, but I thought, let me stop
Where were
myself.
you going?
Was it the Whites?
Don't bleep that out.
I was with white people. I was with black people as well. It was a smorgasbord of colours. Colours of Benetton. Are you happy with that?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Perfect.
Good. You ready to pod?
Let's get it cracking.
Good. Well, thank you once again for listening and watching. To anybody new who's listening and watching, welcome. This isn't us the whole time. Well, 75% of the time, but you know, we are just 3 young black boys who love rap, chatting about rap. And that's the way we've been for, it's going to be our 4th year now.
Jeez.
It's going to be
Fourth year.
It's going to be 4 years in March. March was our first episode, March 2019.
Crazy.
That's crazy,
In
man.
Peter's living room
That's crazy.
when the
Not-
audio was shit.
Not knowing what to do. Try and
Yeah,
connect
it was
wires to
wild.
any which way.
Yeah, that was mad.
That was wild.
And we
Oh.
came through the gutter, fam.
Bruv.
Can you imagine?
I can't go back to the old episodes, man.
I tried to do that once,
I
and it
can't
was
do
just, bro.
I think it's good. I think it's good too. We've
Speak-
come far.
Yeah.
Very far.
We've come far. We've come far. But yes, even if we might not necessarily be able to return to the old episodes, we encourage you to as well because, you know, a lot of good stuff in there. But today we're going to start off 2023 with something a little different. It's something similar to what we've done before where I think it was 2021 where we did a episode dedicated to the one and only Missy Elliott. We're going to do the same thing today as far as dedicating an episode to one subject. And today we are going to talk about a UK legend. a UK legend who came about in the early 2000s and changed the game for a lot of artists, black artists, that will come after her. She goes by the name of Naomi McLean Daly, known to the world as Ms Dynamite. Where she's going to get into, how we first discovered her, what makes her so special, her legacy, her impact, all that good stuff. So without further ado, let's get into it. Boys, when I mentioned the name Ms Dynamite, what are the first things that pop into your head?
Boo!
I mean, that makes sense. Set myself up with that one.
Yeah, that was the first song that I think I heard of hers. So this was back in the time where, in the UK specifically, like garage music was like a prominent and prevalent thing in our culture. I think the shape of our scene, as far as like rap and grime, hadn't really fully taken steam yet, and hadn't really taken shape yet. But you could still see like the foundation that had been laid before. But I think obviously you had the Rodney P's in that, but I still feel like there was like a class after that I'm not gonna say did more important work, but the foundation that they went on to lead probably was a bit more impactful. So yeah, and Boo, which I think was released in like 2001, that was like the first tune that I heard, and that was mainly because of my uncle. He was into all of that. So yeah, that was my first introduction to her. But what was you man's first introduction?
Go for it, man.
Now I was gonna say my one was Envy.
Mm.
So Solid. Because I remember my brother had that on cassette CD. And I remember not knowing Ms Dynamite before that, if I can recall correctly. And I remember hearing her voice, the first, that Ms Dynamite. I was like, wait, what's going on here? And she was just rapping at a crazy pace.
Mm.
So that was my first, because it's like you said, with the Rodney P era, I don't know if it's a case of where I was too young to catch it.
Mm.
I feel like this core that came after was my first recollection listening to UK music.
Mm.
She was the first female black rapper that I remember just hearing, seeing her and Lisa Mafia just for the first time.
Mm.
So yeah, I remember hearing it and just thinking, yeah, this is wild. I can't
Yeah.
like, even the way she closed off the song. I think she had the last verse as well, if I remember correctly, and she closed it off going crazy. So that was my first time listening to it. I'm thinking, yeah, this is a problem.
That was the second song that I heard of hers, but I've always known that to be the They Don't Know remix.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know on So Solid's album, it was known as Envy.
Yeah, but it was.
But I knew it as the They Don't. Yeah, I knew that as the They Don't Know remix.
Yeah.
And, yeah, that was one of the.
But that was
probably the second tune that I heard of hers.
Oh, for
that
real?
she was on. Yeah. And
No, that was
who was this?
That was the first one ever, because I remember we used to rinse, because I used to take that CD. I remember vividly, I used to take that CD to school, and I remember it was like the last day of the final year, and then they were like, "Yo, everyone bring their CDs." So someone brought Shaggy. I brought So Solid. It's just something that always sticked in my mind.
That was the time, boy.
I remember it vividly, and I remember hearing her verse. I'm thinking, this is wild.
Yeah.
And then just going home, trying to see if you could learn the lyrics, go back to school, start saying the lyrics. She was that was the first.
You actually tried to memorize the lyrics?
I just tried to see if I can. Like, you know, my
your memory when it comes to
lyrics is crazy. Like,
Yeah,
it's just
nuts,
I remember lyrics quickly,
Mm.
but she was just rapping at a crazy pace, and I
Yeah.
remember just thinking, this is out of the world. But yeah, that was my introduction to Ms Dynamite. And it was just, that's something that stuck with me forever. What about you, Em?
My memory is kind of murky, but I think it was Envy as well. I think for me, Boo came a little bit later. I just remember hearing her voice and probably seeing her in the video as well, and just seeing like, yo, this is different. Obviously, like when you're watching like the They Don't Know video, when you're watching like So Solid Crew and just the garage scene in general, it was very like mad. Like a lot of people like skippity dippity and just all the arms and Bear Man in the video and all that. So it was a lot like visually, like it was a lot going on.
It was a precursor to what was to come later on, isn't it?
For sure. They laid down a lot of roots, and to the point of like the Rodney P's in that era, not necessarily connecting with us. I suppose with the kind of garage era, we kind of saw more of ourselves, especially when it came to So Solid and people like Ms Dynamite, because they kind of came from a similar background. They were kind of repping certain things that maybe we were coming up on seeing, like maybe around the ends and stuff like that. The fact that we were able to see them on the box on MTV in a way that we maybe weren't able to see with like people like Rodney P and Jest and Skinny Man necessarily, because they were kind of more underground. So, and that garage era was kind of more glossy as well. So you're instantly more attracted to that, especially these youths growing up. So I think there was just more of a sensory connection, because being readily available, and them just representing the here and now at the time. And Ms Dynamite was very much a part of that, man.
I think something that, to add on to that was really important for that time as well, was the fact that for me in the UK, I think she was my first woman MC. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
in
man,
it,
I thought, yeah.
and even though our scene was still just kind of getting started, it was still male dominated here as well. And so to kind of to come across a woman that was able to kind of hold her own amongst those that were out at the time as well, for me was just like, whoa, it was new, it was fresh. And obviously at the time we were still young, but we were obviously still kind of in touch with what was going on in America. And, you know, there was still the Missy, we'd been around the Missy Elliott's and the Little Kims and the Foxy Browns and the Lauryn Hills and that. So to kind of get our version of that in a way was like, whoa, we have to pay attention here, even at a young age, even at an age where you can't really grasp the genius of what's happening. You still, well, I still felt like, you know, I still got to pay attention to what's happening.
It was definitely a pause moment. Like for me, it was definitely hearing her voice was definitely like a pause moment on like, wait a minute, this is completely different.
Particularly on So Solid, because it's like, yo, who is this person that's able to keep up? Who at that time was my favorite MC, Asher D.
And they had
who is this? And maybe spinning him.
No, she spun them because it was one bit. I swear there was one bit. I think him and Mega were going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and then she had the last verse, and it was legit a pause movie. Like, wait a minute, like I don't know who you are. It's the first time hearing your voice. It just threw me for a loop. So it definitely was the first female UK rapper I can vividly remember hearing.
Yeah, I'd agree as well. Just as far as like the UK and having that kind of representative. And the thing with her is like she came up doing pirate radio. Like she was, I think she had a family friend that was starting up a pirate radio station and she was like hosting and like kind of like holding her craft there. And then that's how she gained more buzz. So she's just as like tried and tested in that arena as any other man. So that's what we saw. We saw the energy. We heard the energy. We heard the bounciness, we heard the pizzazz and all that as well. And she did it in a way that kind of set us off apart, not just from being a woman, but just generally. Like anytime she kind of started doing that kind of stuff, it kind of just stopped you in your tracks because her flows, the way she was able to catch the beat, whatever beat it was, whether it was like They Don't Know beat or Boo and or whatever, like it was like it always made you stand up and pay attention, sort of thing.
I think the fact that she started off doing garage was really interesting as well in comparison to what she would eventually go on to do, because I think when she eventually dropped the album, it kind of showed that, okay, cool, you're not going to be pigeonholed into doing just one thing. And from speaking to like some of my uncles and that were around, because obviously we were young, they were much older, living it. Like they would tell me that like the garage purists were kind of looking at her like, "Rah, man, you're no longer repping the thing anymore." So when she dropped, even though like she drops the album a little deeper, and it went on to do crazy things in that. I don't think it was an easy journey for her to get there, as far as like wanting to kind of vary out and do different things.
Well, I think for her, I think growing up, she kind of listened to it all. Like she listened to R&B, she listened to ragga, and I think with the garage stuff, it was kind of like her gateway in the same way that grime and drill was gateway for the younger generations now. So I suppose that garage lot, they're very, I don't want to say weird, but they're very like, they hated grime and they hated anybody that kind of
purists, isn't it?
stepped out.
But that's like everyone, I think. Like, say if you start off rapping a certain kind of style, that fan base is always going to expect you to stick to it.
Yeah.
The minute you branch away is, what is going on here? And I can imagine her getting backlash because the album was complete left turn in terms of every which way she went with it. Whether it was R&B, whether it was...
Yeah, it's not, sorry, it's no different to like a Beyonce dropping Black Renaissance and doing the dance shit. There are going to be like the dance purists that are going to be like very critical of it from a perspective that we wouldn't understand.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Well, it just adds to my agenda that the garage are just grumpy anyway, because anything that is in the garage, they're just mad grumpy. Like, that's just what it is. But with Ms Dynamite, I feel like, okay, yeah, Envy, Boo, and everything that she was doing on pirate radio, I get it. But ultimately, I suppose maybe she was ahead of her time in that regard, because obviously she was doing the garage stuff and that was her gateway. And then she went into the studio and decided that wasn't necessarily going to be her path. Like she had a lot of other influences that she wanted to let loose on wax. And clearly, like when she dropped a little deeper, you could hear the fusing of, ragga, the kind of more production-wise, a little bit more like traditional hip-hop, like R&B and stuff. You can kind of hear in some songs like Dynamite, there's much slower pace, but you still got those kind of like skippy kind of garage flows. I kind of say the same thing with grime. Like if you clock like grime flows, you could pretty much rap in any way you want. And I feel like with garage, like once you've got that flow down, you can pretty much do anything as far as like lacing your voice down on wax. And I feel like she was able to do that like quite well. So while I understand the argument of like, okay, you're stepping out, at the same time, let's remember, like, she was like 20, 21 when A Little Deeper dropped. Like, she's still only like what, in her early 40s now. So it was also a matter of her like figuring things out. Also realizing that her purpose wasn't just the garage stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess from the purist perspectives, and I'm arguing this, but I'm not necessarily on the side of it. But from their perspective, it's a genre that I'm not going to say was dying out kind of early, but it was a genre that could always do with like more blood, fresh
Yeah,
blood.
yeah, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like rejuvenation and that. And I guess when Dynamite was coming through, it was like probably one of our most popular genres amongst like the black community in the UK, innit? So I guess when you've got someone that has blown up, I'd say it's kind of that's rooted in this genre, become bigger, or has gained a level of attention from that genre, and then you go out and do something else and get even bigger. Of course, the purists are going to be like, oh, what about us?
No, I hear that. And that's that's valid. Very, very
Yeah.
valid. But ultimately, she was very like,
I'm gonna do what I want to do.
exactly.
Yeah, because clearly there were things that she wanted to try and do different things.
More
innit?
power to her.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I don't know, but maybe some purists now, maybe their opinions of her have kind of mellowed because they understand the kind of course of like being a musician. Like being a musician doesn't necessarily mean you want to peg yourself down to a particular sound, especially as her first single "Boo" was a garage tune, and then she featured on another garage tune. That wasn't necessarily her identity as much because it was still very early. So I guess the jury was still out in a lot of ways, and and then when she dropped the album, it was like, okay, this is what you do. You kind of do a bit of everything.
And that's why your first look is very important, isn't it? Because depending on how you come out, it's easy to be pigeonholed. Very easy to be pigeonholed. But I guess I respect and appreciate the fact that regardless of anything, she didn't really allow that to stop her from branching out.
Exactly. And nor should it as
Yeah.
well. Like, even if she was successful, and listen, Boo was successful. I think it was like the top 15 when it dropped out in the UK charts.
In like garage raves, it still goes off.
And it still goes off
Yeah,
in
yeah, for
garage.
sure.
Exactly. It still goes off anywhere you play it, sort of thing. So in that respect, she's kind of already got that legendary status. And then it goes another level when it comes to like the album. And the album has like so many like what we could consider classic anthems on there now. Like Dynamite, It Takes More. There was a couple others as well. So I think for me, like, she was able to defy all those odds as far as like being a young black woman making it out in the industry in a time when the industry wasn't really caring for women like her or like artists like her.
There's no one else.
I mean, that was doing
there was
like
people.
her.
Yeah, but I was just saying she might have been the first that I know that blew like that. So there was no prototype before her, if you get what I mean.
Like women,
Yeah,
MCs.
there was no prototype before her. Like there was no blueprint to follow.
Yeah, she might have been the first.
Precisely.
She might have been the first.
So I guess there was a lot of like, there must have been a lot of pressure as well. You know what I'm saying? And it might have been even worse if she even pigeonholed herself to garage, because that wouldn't have aged well. Definitely wouldn't have aged well. It might have, like, when we appraise it in the nowadays, if she had done that, it might have been better. But back then, when she dropped a little deeper, garage was kind of peaking and it was kind of on the way out. Yeah, it wouldn't have. I don't think it would have gone well for her. Whereas with this one, I think she went for a more universal. It's not necessarily timeless, the album, but a more timeless feel than UK garage anyway. So yeah, man, I think she's just like one of the more interesting cases of like artists in this country, in the sense of like she's kind of just done whatever she's wanted. Like whenever she's wanted to drop an album, whenever she's wanted to drop an album, whatever it sounded like, she's wanted it to sound like. She's left and entered the industry back again, like whenever she's wanted to, sort of thing. So she's always kind of played it on her own terms. She was the first like to get like, from what I remember, to get like American producers.
I was just going to say that. She was very important for bridging that gap, man, because she had Salam Remy.
I didn't know that, by the way.
Yeah. And it's interesting that that those who worked together, because like in revisiting her first album recently, like I think I can hear a bit of the backdrop to what Salam would end up doing with Amy Winehouse. And I'd seen some articles where Amy was like, yo, like Ms Dynamite's one of my influences as well. And I can see that now.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, I can see that. So I'm not going to say that, I mean, we can thank Ms Dynamite for Amy Winehouse or anything like that, but I guess her connection with Salam Remy, I think would like
open the door.
Yeah. It would prove as a massive inspiration for what, like, I think he would end up doing with Amy, though.
I can definitely see that.
Yeah.
Stylistically.
Yeah, because there's even a tonation in which they both singing that I think Amy kind of got from Ms Dynamite.
Yeah, I can hear that as well.
What I mean?
I can hear that as well, especially on that album. Like that album, if you had told me that Amy Winehouse did that album, I wouldn't be like, oh, well, no. I don't believe it.
Yeah.
It's definitely got that kind of vibe.
Because I can hear her on Ms Dynamite.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So yeah, that's quite
I can
interesting.
hear on It Takes More as well.
Yeah.
Like, there's I hear that. I mean, shit. I guess she is like low key for Amy Winehouse. So salute to her for that also as well. But listen, man, I think especially at the time when there was so much like doors to open for the UK industry generally. Like, obviously the garage that were doing their thing, but Ms Dynamite kind of took it to another level. Like, when A Little Deeper dropped, obviously first black solo female artist from the UK to win the Mercury Prize. She won a couple Brits, she won a couple Mobos. So she was breaking those doors down and being visible as this like kind of palatable award-winning artist.
And she did it in a way where she didn't have to like sacrifice the integrity of who she is
At all.
and how she comes across and her music, man. Because again, like we didn't have any women here doing it the way she did it. Like, our references were to the Little Kims and the Foxy Browns and that. And a lot of them, not to say that they didn't have skill as well, but they relied hugely on their sexuality in that. Do you know what I mean? For better or for worse. And so you would imagine that inspiration could have like fallen here. But,
yeah, you could have seen it.
But Ms Dynamite didn't really take that route. And it's not to say that she wasn't also easy on the eye, but she didn't take that route. She chose to, for it to be more about her penmanship and her art. And I think that's like extremely dope. And it's interesting how like when you look at the women MCs today, how different it's kind of veered away from the groundwork that a Ms Dynamite has laid, for better or for worse.
Yeah, for sure. I think these days, obviously, sex sells, and in an industry where it still kind of encourages that, because even if you look at like post A Little Deeper for Ms Dynamite, like she went away, had a child, came back, recorded an album, and when it wasn't doing so well, her label dropped her, sort of thing. I don't think that would necessarily happen if she had been the kind of more sexy type of vibe, the kind of aesthetic. So
You don't think so?
No, I don't think so. I think because if you're gonna do that, if you're gonna do the whole sex sells thing, you're probably gonna do a lot better promo wise and sales wise, because people love to buy into that stuff. So I think
even if the music isn't great,
the music don't need to be great when you're that's one. The music don't need to be great when it's you're selling sex.
Not at all.
Don't need to be great.
Not at all. So I think someone who is very much focused on the art and not compromising on that, especially when they do what Little Deeper did as far as like acclaim and she got like a Pepsi brand deal.
Like a one,
she was on SNL.
She got a meal, like $1 million.
She got a meal off it as well. So
of Pepsi.
The drop from that to maybe not necessarily doing as well as projected on the second album, it's obviously very harsh for the label to drop her. But
I heard it was a mutual thing though. I think she approached the label and was like, listen, I don't think we've got a single that can save this album. Maybe we should just cut our losses. So I don't know if the label just dropped her. It might have been a mutual agreement.
But it could have also been
where she was all right with walking away.
Because it might have been the label not doing their job.
Yeah, it could have been that too.
They're just not giving her the push.
No, but I think as a Dynamite fan, I think I can objectively say that the second album was definitely a fall off artistically. Her skill set had probably gotten better as far as like vocally as a singer and lyrically as an MC. But I think where the album lacked was probably like the musicality behind the voice. Like I think she worked with the same producers as she did on the first one. Salam Remy weren't involved too much from what I know in the second one. And I think she had worked with a producer called Chink Santana, who's from the States, and he's produced for like Ashanti and Tony Braxton and that. So from listening to it, it seemed like there was more of I think she was trying to lean more towards a softer sound. And I'm not going to say towards like an American sound, but it did feel a little less
UK.
Yeah, I will say that, man. I will say that. And from like reading like reviews and that, they were accusing her of being too preachy and that, and I don't think it was that. Because I don't think she was saying anything. Like
it's about media or just
media, like all these like newspapers.
But they would though, innit?
Yeah,
imagine a black
woman
critics and that.
Yeah, well, that's one thing I would say about A Little Deeper. As good as it is, I can see why someone might think that it might be a bit preachy.
No, the second one.
No, but I'm saying generally, like, if they think the second one was preachy, then if I think back to my thinking and my experience of taking in the first album, I can see why people might think that anyway.
Did you think the first one was preachy?
I think, me personally, I don't think it was preachy necessarily, but I can see why people might think it's preachy. Like, if you think about a song like It Takes More, she's basically telling us we need to do better.
Yeah.
So, depending on who you are, you could see that as like, well, why are you telling me that sort of thing? And if that then carries over into the second album, then you can kind of make 2 and 2 sort of thing.
Nah, man.
I got that way more. From
I'm not saying
I'll be
I
honest with you.
would,
I
but
got
But you feel that you can see that argument.
yes.
Nah,
I gotta
and I
preach
would argue against that person, man, because if that's how you feel, then clearly the music isn't for you. And that's all right as well. But I think the issue that we've had across our genres is like we have like, critics that aren't from our community being able to commentate on the music. They don't understand it. And they're able to place like harsh criticisms on albums that they don't understand.
picking up on what you said. That's why I asked who said it's preachy.
Yeah.
Because
yeah,
you
yeah,
can't
yeah.
tell. It's literally what you're saying. You
Yeah.
can't tell me what preachy is and preachy isn't. Don't get me wrong. In the second album, she's talking a lot more about.
Yeah, you got
issues-
Mr. Prime
issues.
Minister
Got Mr.
and
Prime
songs like
Minister.
that.
But
But
it's also, it's the right message.
it's the same sort of vein
Do you
as
know
the
what I mean?
first one, though.
Yeah.
But I just think the musicality was a lot better than the first one. That's what I think it was personally.
Maybe the music doesn't help the messages because the music itself maybe not necessarily is a fit for the messages and the actual like songwriting.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
that's it. But for me, I think like generally just as far as like her actual like the way she actually paints pictures, like the way she tells stories is so graceful. Like, yes, some people might argue that she's preachy, but I think it's more so just looking outward at society and looking inward at what we can do to improve our standing within it. I don't think that's necessarily preachy. I
Precisely.
just think that's just what some people need to hear.
Yeah.
Like across generations, like we have that one person.
Yeah.
I think Ms Dynamite for that generation was that person because ultimately, who was doing that sort of thing back in those days? What black artist was really telling us we need to do better? Like at that level. Like, we could talk about like the conscious hip hop
In the
guys.
UK.
In the UK.
We could talk about the conscious hip hop guys. They were probably doing that as well, but no one was hearing them as much as they were hearing Dynamite.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think for that, she was a good, I suppose, role model for that, and spreading the message. And I think it was very necessary for anyone that needs to hear it.
And do you know how ill she is, bro? Like, to have a single like put him out and it takes more as singles that pop, that's a talent, man, because I consider them to be conscious records. Do you know what I mean? But to get them to a point where there's a mass appeal, that's not easy, man. Because we have that conversation all the time off the pod about why conscious rappers like can be a bit annoying to listen to because they don't necessarily have that music making ability that allows them to move beyond just like bars and telling me how like how black people need to unify. But she was able to do that.
It goes down to her delivery, and it goes down to I think production as well. I think production can sometimes mask that, and it can make. I think like there's a song. I think it's "Move Something" Talib Kweli. It's not necessarily like conscious in any way, but the beat is fire, and we know Talib to be like a conscious rapper. Sometimes all you need is it's a fire beat, good delivery, and some people will probably forget what the actual message is. And I think with It Takes More, the fact that she was able to deliver it with such poise, and the fact that the beat is something that you might want to dance to, you got a winner there.
Yeah.
So she was very good at that. Put him out as well. Great song.
Yeah.
Like I remember listening to Dynamite on the flipping FIFA 2003.
Bruv.
Yeah.
Bruv.
Yeah, I mean, like
yeah.
that was ingrained in my head.
That was her first,
MTV bass.
Yeah.
That's what it takes me back
that was
to.
her first solo song to me. That was her first. Oh shit! Because So Solid was a feature. So with So Solid, it's like, all right, we're working with something here. Then Ms Dynamite came out. It's like, yeah, that was a game changer. Is that the biggest female song we've ever had, rapping wise?
Would you say she was rapping on that song?
No, she was
No,
singing.
she weren't rapping.
Yeah.
But from a rapper. She rap? Yeah. Have we had a bigger
She's
female?
like.
Have we had a bigger female
It's
song?
difficult to place her because she's like.
Do you know
she's
what I mean?
from the ilk of
Yeah.
Lauryn Hill, innit? Where, you know what I mean? Like she sings and she bars. So it's
yeah.
kind of, it's difficult to say. I don't know. She was just doing what she does, isn't it? She sings and she raps.
Would you say this is a UK miseducation? A little deeper. Because I was waiting for someone to compare her to Lauren.
Is it a miseducation?
Is it the UK's miseducation?
It's from that ilk.
It's this yeah, but it's
in the family.
the same family tree.
Yeah.
It's the same family tree,
innit?
like we know what the head of the family tree is, and that's miseducation.
yeah.
After that, there's some sub branches. It's definitely a sub branch.
But would we do that though? Any woman MC that was gonna come out here that was speaking conscious and uplifting and that was black, would we
No, your talent.
kind of link him to Lauren?
Depends on your talent.
Yeah, I think it's a compliment, really.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a compliment.
It depends on your talent.
But I don't want to take away from Ms Dynamite being Ms Dynamite.
Oh no, for sure.
Do you know
Because
what I mean?
ultimately, like Lauryn Hill can't do what Ms Dynamite does,
Yeah.
and Ms Dynamite can't do necessarily what Lauren does.
Yeah.
So I think they're definitely different. And if you think about like the musicality, this is more like for the time a little deeper was a little bit more modern. Whereas I think Miseducation was a little bit more cool R&B sometimes.
Mm.
A little bit of hip hop there in there as well. I think maybe neo soul if you think that.
Yeah.
So I think that one is a little bit more modern, whereas that is a bit more traditional.
Mm.
I'd say. But I mean, like, you can definitely see the kind of similarities as far as like the way the artists themselves like kind of present themselves. They can kind of do it all.
Yeah.
Ms Dynamite can clearly do it all.
Mm.
Man,
And Ms Dynamite's dopeness is the reason why we're saying Lauryn Hill's name.
Yeah.
Like her
Yeah.
dopeness is the reason why Lauryn Hill's name's getting mentioned here. It's not to dim her light or anything like that. It's just to show how wavy she was.
and what I respect of Ms Dynamite as well, she never sat on no fence. She always told you how she felt. Like, whether it was like telling us to do better, whether she was talking about like, you know, her own family life and how bad that's been. Because let's not forget, like, her family life was pretty bad.
Bruh, Father, was it Father? I think one of the songs. She got a song on second album called Father.
Yeah.
It's
Oh, man.
crazy. And
Very mad.
even Mr. Prime Minister, can you imagine back then? Because it's not like speaking out today, not knocking anything, but speaking out back then is completely different to today. Today you've got social media. Back then she was going to force to the sword of the critics. And who's the critics? It's not us, man. In 05, it's these man. So it's to speak out against what's going on back then. It must have been way more different to now, if you get what I mean, just musically.
It probably meant
It definitely meant more. But then at the same time, we don't know the ramifications that came behind that, if you know what I mean. Like, you just don't know how much more difficult anything could have got. So to speak out back then, it's the respect levels on it.
and still being very young at the time as well.
Do you know what I mean? Like what?
Because even when she dropped the second album, she was like 24.
24, 25.
So at that point, she'd already had the career of like a vet, pretty much. Like,
And she didn't need that. She could have kept it easily. She could have kept the commercial. She could have kept the commercial without thinking twice.
That's probably what Polydor were expecting on the second one, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So like to say, no, I'm not doing that, and I just want to speak for the sake of.
would you call a Little Deeper commercial though? Or do you think it just did well commercially?
I think it just did well. It was perfect timing. Like Ms Dynamite was perfect timing to me.
Yeah, the integrity was there.
But I don't think it was a reach.
The masses just kind of caught on, innit?
I think it's more that.
Yeah, I don't think she went searching.
I don't. Yeah, no,
I don't think she went
not at
searching.
all. Not at all.
No, you should be making what she wanted to make.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah.
Absolutely. And the fact that she transcends generations is the fact that, you know, she did the song Lights On with KTB as well. And she was then introduced to a whole new audience who could then go back and be like, oh yeah, Ms Dynamite, like she's like a pillar of this thing, especially
Ms Dynamite had Early Wayne on her album.
Early Wayne.
Early Wayne.
On the whole song. It wasn't just
the whole song.
Yeah, not even just a hook.
What was it? Carter 2 Wayne? Was that Carter 2 era Wayne?
It might have been Carter 1, Carter 2.
Carter 1, Carter 2 era
Yeah,
Wayne.
yeah.
Fireman Wayne.
She had a
I wonder why
Marley.
we never got the third album, though.
I just think
That's
I feel like
Had the industry changed? Had the scene changed a bit too much? Was it? I don't know what it was, because I know she had been flirting with it for a few years. I'd seen like a few interviews where she was talking about it, but then it never really came. And I always wondered that, because I heard that she would. I know she did the song with Labyrinth. She was, I think, Naughty Boy was going to be on it, but it just never really came.
Did the scene move too quick? That was a.
maybe she's still trying to find her place within it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's an Andre 3000 type thing where, you know, she's just trying to figure out what her purpose is. Because I feel like, or maybe it was an element of, although she's still making music, maybe the second album affected her in ways we
Oh yeah, for sure.
we weren't able to see, and that kind of affected how she sees the industry generally. And she's been through things, man. She's been through things. Like she went to she go to jail, or was she convicted, or
I don't think she went to jail.
well, she assaulted a police officer.
Okay.
Oh, swear.
Yeah. I don't know if she went to jail, but that happened. So
But you think that would have contributed to the art in any way?
I mean, I think it would have like maybe made her step back and like focus on her life more so than the music.
Yeah.
It could have been anything. Could have been.
Yeah, it could have been anything. I think but I also think she's also very content where she's at.
Yeah, because she's a
She's
legend.
right, I was just about to say
She's
that.
going down as a legend, a trailblazer. Who wouldn't be content with that, bro? Like most women MCs that come out now are taking something from the blueprint that she laid down.
Who do you see that in most these days?
Today?
I think Sims
I was going to
is
say
from
Sims
that family
just because of
tree.
the integrity.
Yeah, she's from that tree. I don't listen to many. Sims probably being the biggest one. But I think you would hear Lady Leisha's spoken about her in high esteem, and that think that I can see Nole taking from her as well.
Probably some of that older generation.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah, I probably agree with you. Like people who like value the artistry
Yeah.
and everything that comes with it more so than anything else. Yeah, I'd say so as well. Well,
I'll say Sims. Sims, the
Yeah.
first person that popped into my head just because the way what she raps about and what she keeps herself to. Sims is the only one I can really think of.
that makes sense.
Yeah, that's the only one I can really, really think of.
Yeah, man, I'd say so. Listen, man, she's a trailblazer.
I'm surprised she never really done a proper album with Akala, because they had a mixtape together, which was called A Little Darker. But yeah, they never really did like a proper album together. That surprised me.
I guess when he was coming up, she was doing her break.
Yeah.
And now he's still making music, but obviously he's on his his scholar activist vibe as well. So I guess the stars never really aligned. Maybe.
Does she have longevity against her?
What do you mean?
Like, if we were gonna critique her, because from our legends, man, we I think longevity is a big thing. A catalogue is a big thing. That might be something that Dynamite doesn't have.
Yeah, but
Is that a chink in her armor?
I don't think it is because of the time. If you're the first one ever and you don't have a long run, but someone comes after you and has a long run, is that not because of the work you put in? Do you get what I mean? Like, I can't hold what someone done when they're the first. Do you know, it used to be the first person, for her to be the first female black rapper to have an album, and go where it went, winning Mercury, do all of that. I can't hold it against her, man. Just off the first album alone.
Plus, with the first album alone, and with the singles that prior to that, like Boo and Envy and that's a lot that she's done. That's a lot of credit in the bank. So when it comes to longevity, I don't think that necessarily works against her, because I suppose for some of us who grew up during that time, we kind of remember her for being in that era and being such a big part of that era, and that's always going to stay with us because that's where we grew up and that's how we see her. I mean, if we're gonna do the Lauren Cahill comparison thing as well, she doesn't really have that much longevity either. Yeah, but we still remember her as
It's
like
the
being
work. It's the work
who
you've
she
given
is,
us.
right?
It's the work you've given us.
Precisely, and it hit so many people and it done so much that sometimes you only need one.
I guess it's no different to some of her male counterparts as well, because So Solid don't have longevity either as far as catalogue.
But it's so solid.
But and to me, they're neck and neck. You can, you could argue that they're neck and neck. So same sort of argument, I suppose.
Yeah, for sure. And I think obviously
impacts can be so much to where longevity doesn't necessarily matter.
Because
it's
say like a Huss today who drops album after album. It's only easier for you because of the work XYZ put in.
New Huss album out soon.
Yeah, but I can't wait. But that's another conversation. But you get what I mean?
Yeah.
You're only now flourishing because of the work they put in. So it's always going to go back to the Ms Dynamites, the So Solids on some respect.
And as much as we don't want to do the little brother thing in the UK, it does work a little different. Like sometimes when it comes to like artists, some of them don't even have a 2 album span, let alone flipping 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And I think back then as well, when those particular artists of that particular ilk, like So Solid and Ms Dynamite, were just coming through, and when it became clear that they were marketable, the industry took what they wanted
and then dropped them.
And then they didn't really care after. I think it says a lot about the dynamics of the industry in this country. Obviously, it can be the same in the US, but I think the US is a little bit more sophisticated in comparison, especially when it comes to like quote unquote black or urban music sort of thing.
I hate the word urban.
I can't stand
I don't like
that
it
word.
either.
I hate that word.
Say black.
Because you know you mean it. But
I
it's
agree.
like you said, it's
So yeah, I don't think longevity is against her.
It can't be, man.
So if you man were gonna you were readying Ms Dynamite's comeback album, right? What producer would you place her with?
Conductor.
Conductor Williams.
No.
Madlib.
British. No. British Conductor.
Oh.
Shout out to Conductor with an A. He's a garage. He's a garage producer. New school. So I lace some Conductor with her, and then everything else. Inflow. I think Inflow will give us some nice stuff. We'll just do it if I'm just doing UK. Ooh. I'll leave it at that for now.
Yeah, I think I've got Inflow and bring back Salam Remy, man. Bring them back together.
Oh, you want them to do more together?
Yeah. I think
it worked.
He would nicer, man.
It worked.
Yeah, those two would do the album together. Salam and Inflow.
I need to think on it. You're going to be stumped. You're going to be stumped.
I mean, Salam and Inflow, that might be a classic, to be fair.
That's all you need, man.
Can you imagine?
Suppose.
Make the call, innit?
He'll make the call.
Yeah.
To who?
You feel me?
Like, to who, man?
Who am I calling?
He wishes he
I
knew
was like,
inflow.
yo, make the call.
That's
innit?
alarm.
I was like,
Hey,
make the
man.
call. Can you imagine? I don't know. I need to think on it, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, I feel like
It's been a lot.
Who are you featuring on that album? Who do you think she would work with well today?
that's a good question.
I think her and Miss Banks would make some good music.
For real?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
You reckon?
Yeah. Miss Banks can go into that
yeah,
world.
yeah, yeah.
She can go
I
into that
agree.
world.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, she can spit. Sims, obviously.
Naturally.
I mean, Akala for the culture.
Carla for the
Oh yeah,
culture.
for sure, for sure.
We need to talk about them as a family a bit more, as
Mm.
far as like amazing British musical families.
And just like incredible contributors to the community, man. Because what Carla does for the community, like as far as
No,
like,
they stand
the
up.
books, and, you know what I mean, like it's just yeah, Carla, Sims, Banks. I think Flo Higher will work quite nicely with her.
That's a shout.
That's a shout.
I won't have too many features. Not. I think Cleo Soul would work quite nicely with her as well. But because I'd want Miss Banks singing on a lot of it, I wouldn't need too many features. So yeah, I think that.
You-
I'm trying to think, would her and Miss Banks work?
You'd have Miss Banks singing.
No, I'd have Dynamite singing.
Oh, okay.
I thought
Yeah.
you said Miss Banks singing.
No. Sorry, did I say Banks?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
I
was
meant
Miss Banks
just
singing?
Dynamite. I meant Dynamite.
Oh, okay, cool.
Because I'd have her singing on most of the albums. So yeah.
I'd want to hear them go back and forth, to be fair. But I get you. I do get you. Yeah. Georgia Smith. I think Georgia Smith would work well with Miss Dynamite.
I believe Georgia Smith makes music.
Say what?
Never mind.
You don't believe she makes music?
Yeah.
What do you mean by that, sir?
I've never heard a Georgia Smith song. I think I've
What
heard
about
like,
Blue Lights?
I think I've heard like 2 Georgia Smith songs. You know that mythical figures you hear about sometimes? It's her and her music career. Georgia Smith's music career is something you hear about but you never see. But then you see her. Does that make sense or
You've
not?
definitely heard more than 2.
Well,
Georgia
I don't
Smith
think
songs.
I don't think I
No, you
have.
definitely
Bro.
have.
I'm saying it's like a mythical.
You definitely have.
It's like a mythical figure.
She's not a mythical figure.
Alright.
She's on road.
Do you enjoy her music? No, we'll get sidetracked. Sorry, man.
I mean, I think parts of it are good. I like Blue Lights. I think her first album wasn't good. It was dull. The last project she did was quite good.
Take your word for it.
Tell you what, listen to her.
What, George Smith?
Yes. But yeah, anyway, I think she'll work well with Miss Dynamite as well. Yeah, I feel like because so many of them like look up to her. I imagine. I feel like she would fit in. And again, Miss Dynamite is a chameleon. Like she can do all of it. Like if she wants to get on her garage flow, she'll do it. If she wants to start singing her heart out, she'll do it. So I feel like she works well with pretty much anybody, really. Yeah, man. And she's from Northwest as well. So I guess that's a win for you, in a sense.
Not. I'll take it, but not really.
Why?
I only claim Tottenham.
I mean, you can claim North though.
Yeah, but like North makes the debate easier for you guys.
We're not from North.
No, but as in if I broaden it to North,
You're still losing.
too easy for. That's my point. We're losing if I broaden it to North.
I mean,
But if I keep it to postcode, we win.
But
Right.
Dynamite strengthens North.
Yeah, but my point is, but like you could go to East, South, and then you've got a pool to pick from. But if I say just give me one postcode N17, and I can read off 8 rappers, you see the way it does not become. It becomes a little bit more.
I think a New
Do you
Year's
get what I mean or not?
I think
Leave me
a New-
alone, man. Don't
I
touch
think-
me.
I think
bro.
a New Year's
apologize.
resolution.
Leave me alone, bro.
I think a New Year's resolution for this pod is to keep these mentions of who's the best MCs from which area
You started it,
to
by
a
the way.
minimum. I know I said it, but I'm saying it from now. Let's keep it to a minimum, right? Because then Drake's will start going mad. He'll start huffing and puffing. Like, we don't want that.
because
do
there's
we?
one rapper from Plasto.
See? But yeah, man. Anything else to say on Miss Dynamite?
Nah,
man,
man.
gold
Just
status.
yeah, man. Just big up.
Gold
We
status.
appreciate you. Thank you.
Giving you flowers.
Where do you
And
think the
yeah,
scene would be
Doggos.
without her?
That's like asking where would the scene be without So Solid.
We actually wouldn't know.
I can't.
You
answer
don't know because you could have delayed everything by. Say if there was no Miss
that.
Dynamite,
For real.
you don't know how much that could have delayed female hip hop
For
or
real.
just female
For real.
music in general. You don't. That could have delayed it by 8 years. So
That's what I was getting at.
it's a
Mm.
scary thought.
I mean, the scene is not the same without her. If she doesn't
Yeah.
Yeah.
back pop in the way that she pops, just as far as like, not just in terms of like for the women, like just generally.
It's the
like,
perfect
scene
artist at a
for
perfect
British
time.
music.
Yeah.
Like she, along with So Solid, not just the garage thing, but as far as like her fusion of all the other genres, like you change the fabric of what British music can sound like. It doesn't have to sound American. It doesn't have to sound like anything that we're copying. It could just sound so fresh, and it could be such an authentic twist on all of the other genres that came before us, sort of thing. And that's the great thing about like music generally, having your own spin on it. And I think without that, like maybe other artists aren't as daring that come after her as well. So yeah, man.
Facts.
Salute to Ms Dynamite, man.
Salute to one of the goats.
You are loved. You are cherished. We appreciate you. And that's that on that. All right. Short and sweet episode.
Yeah, man.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching once again. Boys, any shout outs you want to make? And let me actually finish. Any shout outs you want to make before we take the people out?
Ah, man, just big up the Most High.
All the time.
Yeah, man. New year, man.
We're switching it up now.
Switching it up. Yeah,
Like it's
man.
Allahu Akbar. Can't switch what? Can't raise that now. Raise that now. No. Right. Shout outs.
man.
Hey, he shouted out the Most High, so we're done now. Actually, no. Shout out to Mudryk.
Oh, Arsenal's new signing.
Yes.
I
The
wanna shout-
Ukrainian Messi. Sorry.
Oh, God. See, this is
It's a joke. It's a joke. It's a
You
joke.
see?
Relax.
Don't joke, man.
It's a joke.
Don't
It's a
joke.
joke. It's a joke.
Don't joke.
He's a Ukrainian Neymar, but it's a joke.
Have you even seen him play?
Never in my life.
Wowza. All right, cool. Well, I'm going to shout out Fabrizio Romano.
Go hanger.
I'm going to shout out David Ornstein, because why not? Shout out Michael Jordan as well, because why not? Shout out Tim Duncan, Tony Parker,
There we go.
Manu Ginobili,
Kyrie.
Steph Curry,
AI.
Klay Thompson,
Kawhi.
Draymond Green,
Kawhi.
Kevin Durant,
Are you trying to mention people that LeBron lost to?
Yes.
Kawhi Leonard,
Kawhi Leonard, Dirk Nowitzki,
Dirk Nowitzki,
Dirk Nowitzki,
Jason Terry,
Jason Terry, Jason Kidd.
Jason Kidd, Tyson Chandler,
Keep him coming.
Zaza Pachulia.
Who?
Zaza Pachulia. You want me to continue going or we stop now?
Or Bruce
No, you can
Bowen.
just stop.
Did he lose to Bruce Bowen? I think Bruce Bowen might have been part of that Spurs team. Might have been.
For context, listeners, we have this very ongoing civil
Thiago
war
Splitter.
between myself and Mohammed about who was the greatest NBA player ever, Michael Jordan, LeBron. I'm Team Jordan, he's Team LeBron.
Basically, it's LeBron versus a degenerate gambler. It's up to you guys who you want to pick. And that is the end of the podcast.
A degenerate?
That is a perfect way to end it.
That's a good way to end it.
No, it
That
wasn't.
is a perfect.
That's
What?
a good way to end
And
it, man.
scene. That's a perfect way to end it.
I didn't say bye to everybody, first of all.
Oh, sorry. I thought degenerate gambler and a fade to black is amazing.
Degenerate.
Listen, man, a degenerate gambler with no bum fluff on his head. I'll say that much.
You're right.
He'll actually pull
You're right.
bum
Bum
his
fluff.
ass. Then
Hey,
boom.
man.
What's wrong
Hey,
with
man.
Yemi,
Hey,
man?
Boom. I mean, that's what happened. That's what Wayne Rooney did. That's what LeBron did too.
Hey.
That's what I'm saying, man. But yes, shout out to Most High as well, and shout out to all of the listeners and all of the viewers as well. Yes, we're hoping that this is a big year for Rhymes Like Dimes. We're going to be regular. We're going to be coming to you bigger and better. And listen, man, we hope that you are here for the ride. It's going to be a great one. So until next time, follow us on all the socials at Rhymes Dimes Pod, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Follow us on YouTube as well. Type in Rhymes Like Dimes Podcast. We are there. And yeah, we'll see you soon. So take care.
Salute.
Stay safe. Peace.